Don't run, Zed said, and Chase yelled at the same time. The Skreeling rose up on its clawed toes, attracted by the sudden movement. It let out a cackling laugh and darted to the stairs. Zed threw a fist of air, hitting it in the chest, knocking it back a pace. It hardly noticed. It peered over the carved stone railing at the top and saw people running. With a cackle, it grasped the railing and leaped over, dropping a good 20 feet to the two running, white-robed figures. Chase immediately put Rachel's face to his shoulder and reversed direction, coming back up the stairs. He knew what was going to happen, and there was nothing he could do about it. Zed waited at the top. Hurry, while it's distracted. There was a brief struggle, and screams that were just as brief. Howling laughter echoed in the stairwell. Blood splattered in an arc up the white marble, almost to where Chase was charging up the stairs. Rachel hid her face against him and hugged his neck tight, but didn't make a sound. Zed was impressed by her. He had never seen one so young use her head as well as she did. She was smart and gutsy. He understood why Geller had used her to keep the last box of Orden from Darken Rahul. The way of wizards, Zed thought, using people to do what must be done. The three ran down the hall until the Skreeling appeared at the top of the stairs, and then they slowed to a backward walk. The Skreeling grinned with bluttered teeth in its deathless black eyes, momentarily reflecting the golden light from the sun coming in a tall, narrow window. It winced at the light and licked the blood off its claws, then looped after them. They went down the stairway. The creature followed, sometimes stopping briefly in confusion, seemingly unsure if it was them it was after. Chase held Rachel in one arm and sword in his other hand. Zed stayed between them and the Skreeling as they backed down a small hall. The Skreeling climbed up the walls, scratching the smooth stone and sprang across the tapestries, tearing them with its claws as they followed the three. Polished walnut side tables, each with 3 ornate legs carved in vines and dotted with gilded blossoms, tipped over into the hall as the Skreeling pushed at them with a claw, grinning and laughing at the sound of cut glass vases shattering on the stone floor. Water and flowers spilled over carpets. The Skreeling hopped down and tore a priceless blue and yellow Temeranian carpet to shreds as it howled in laughter and then skittered up the wall to the ceiling. It advanced along the ceiling like a spider, head hanging down, and watched them. How could it do that? Chase whispered. Zed only shook his head as they backed into the immense central halls of the People's Palace. The ceiling here was well over 50 feet high, and a collection of 4 pointed ribbed vaults held up by a column at the corner of each vault. Suddenly, the Skreeling sprang along the ceiling of the small hall it was in and leaped at them. Zed released a bolt of fire from his fingertips as the creature flew through the air. He missed, the fire boiling the granite wall, leaving a trail of black soot before it dissipated. For the first time, Chase didn't miss. With a solid strike with his sword looped off one of the Skreeling's arm. For the first time, the Skreeling howled in pain. It tumbled around on the ground and darted behind a green vine-gray marble column. The severed arm lay on the stone floor, twitching and grasping. Soldiers came running across the vast hall, their swords to hand, the clatter of their armor and weapons reverberating off the vaulted ceilings and high overhead, their boots striking, echoing off the tiles around the devotion pool as they skirted in. D'Haran soldiers were a fierce lot, and they looked all the more so at finding there was an invader in the palace. Zed felt an odd sort of apprehension at the sight of them. A few days ago, they would have dragged him off to the former Master Rahul to be killed. Now, they were the loyal followers of the new Master Rahul, Zed's grandson, Richard. As Zed saw the soldiers come in, he realized the halls were filled with people. The afternoon devotion had just ended. Even if the Skreeling did only have one arm, this could be a bloodbath. The Skeeling could kill a few dozen of them before they even get the chance to escape. And then it would kill more when they did. They had to get all these people away. The soldiers rushed around the wizard, eyes hard, searching, ready, looking for the cause of the commotion. Zed turned to the commander, a heavily muscled man in leather and polished breastplate with the ornate letter R embossed on it, the symbol of the House of Rahul. The scars of rank were incised on upper arms, covered with only coarse mail sleeves. Intense blue eyes glowered out from his gleaming helmet. "What is going on here?" he demanded. "What is it?" "Get these people out of this hall! They are in danger!" The commander's face reddened behind the cheeks of his helmet. I am a soldier, not a bloody sheep herder." Zed gritted his teeth. "And a soldier's first duty is to protect people. If you don't get these people out of this hall, Commander, I will see to it you become a sheep herder." The commander's fist snapped to his heart in salute. His voice suddenly controlled at realizing who he was arguing with. "By your command, Wizard Zorander." He turned his anger instead on his men. "Get everyone back! Right bloody now! Spread rank! Sweep the hall!" The soldiers fanned out, pushing a wave of startled people before them. Zed hoped they could get them all clear, and then maybe, with the soldiers' help, they could bottle up the Skrreeling and hack it to pieces. But then, the Skrreeling launched itself from behind the column, a black streak tearing across the floor. It tumbled into a bunch not of onlookers. The soldiers were hurting back, toppling many one over another to the floor. Shrieks and wails, and then the Skrreeling's hideous laughter erupted from across the hall. Soldiers fell upon the creature and were flung back, bloodied, as more came to their aid. In the panicked clump of people, the soldiers couldn't swing a sword or an axe with any effect as the Skrreeling tore a bloody path through the bodies. It had no more caution for the armed soldiers than unarmed innocents. It simply ripped at anyone close enough. "Bags!" Zed cursed. He turned to Chase. "Stick close to me. We have to draw it away." He looked around. "Over there, the devotion pool." They ran to the square pool of water that was situated under an opening in the roof. Sunlight streamed down, reflecting in rippling patterns on the column at one of its corners. A bell perched on the dark pitted rock that sat off center in the water. Orange fish glided through the shallow pool, unconcerned with the mayhem above. Zed was getting an idea. The Skrreeling wasn't bothered by fire. The most it did when hit with it was steam a little. He ignored sounds of pain and dying and stretched his hands out over the water, gathered its warmth, preparing it for what he was going to do. He could see simmering waves of heat just above the surface of the water. He held the rising heat at that point just before ignition. "When it comes," he told Chase, "we have to get it in the water." Chase nodded. Zed was glad the boundary warden wasn't one who always needed to have things explained to him and knew better than to waste precious seconds with questions. Chase set Rachel on the floor. "Stay behind me," he told her. She too asked no questions. She nodded and hugged her doll close. Zed saw that she was clutching the fire stick in her other hand. Gutsy indeed. He turned to the uproar across the hall, lifted a hand, and sent tickling tongues of flame into the flailing dark thing in its center. The soldiers fell back. The Skrreeling straightened, turning, dropping a disembodied arm from its teeth as it did so. With a sudden steam rose where the flames had licked it. It hissed. A cackling laugh at the wizard standing still in the sunlight by the pool. The soldiers were pushing the remaining people down the halls, although the people no longer needed the encouragement. Zed rolled balls of fire across the floor. The Skrreeling batted them out of the way. They sparked out. Zed knew fire wouldn't harm it. He only wanted to draw its attention. It worked. "Don't forget," he said to Chase. "In the water." "You don't mind if it's dead when it goes in, do you?" "All the better." With a clatter of claws against stone, the Skreeling charged across the hall. The tips of the claws scratched into the floor, sending little spurts of stone dust behind, along with flakes and chips. Zed hit it with compacted knots of air, hammering it down, keeping its attention, trying to slow it down enough so they might be able to handle it. It came to its feet in a rush, each time charging onward. Chase crouched a little lower in readiness, now holding a six-bladed mace in his fist instead of the sword. The Skreeling made an impossible leap through the air at the wizard, landing on him with a howl, but before he had a chance to turn it aside. As he was thrown to the floor, Zed wove webs of air to keep the thrashing claws at bay. Teeth snapped viciously at his throat. Man and beast rolled over once, and when the Skreeling came up on top, Chase swung the mace at its head, hitting a glancing blow. It spun to him and slammed it square in the chest, knocking it off the wizard. Zed could hear bones snapping with the blow. The Skreeling seemed hardly to notice. Its one arm swept out, yanking Chase's legs out from under him, and then sprang onto his chest as he hit the floor with a hard ugh. Zed struggled to regain his wits. Rachel laid the fire stick on the Skreeling's back, and flames burst up. Zed pushed it with air, trying to knock it into the water, but the Skreeling held on to Chase tenaciously. Angry black eyes glared out from behind the fire, lips curled back in a snarl. Chase brought the mace up with both hands, catching the powerful creature square in the back. The impact knocked the Skreeling into the pool. Hissing steam rose up upon the content of flame and water. Instantly, Zed ignited the air above the water, using heat in the water to defeat it. The wizard's fire sucked all warmth from the water. The entire pool froze into a solid black. The entire pool froze into a solid block of ice. The Skreeling was encased. The fire sputtered out with a smooth hiss. When the heat preceding it was exhausted, there was a sudden quiet, all except for the moans from the injured across the hall. Rachel fell on Chase, her voice choked with tears. Chase, are you all right? He put an arm around her as he leveled himself into a sitting position. That I am, little one. That I am. Zed could see that wasn't entirely true. Chase, go sit on that bench. I have to help those people, and I don't want little eyes to see what's going on. I have to help these people, and I don't want little eyes to see what's over there. He knew this appeal would work better than telling Chase. He didn't want him walking around with his injuries until they could be seen to. Zed was a little surprised when Chase nodded without protest.